Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. This week we're getting pretty close to midterms, but let that not deter us from the progress we're going to make. In this week's lab, we're going to go over orienting objects and then also going over making mobile construction planes. So in the past, what we've been focusing on is staying within these sort of three different views, right? We're staying in our world coordinate system, the top, the front, the right, and working in that manner. And then maybe we're also using Gumball to move objects within that space, which is quite all right. It's one easy way to make 3D geometry is to, jump between these planes and manipulate our geometry. Now, what if we want to make something already or have something come off of a part that already exists, and we want that to be a nice, clean addition to that part, either an extrusion or we're subtracting space, but we want to manipulate that part in a clean manner. And so we're going to go over how we can actually just take that coordinate plane and move it to a different surface, say over here, things like that. So some things to note in this file is this is the same sort of perspective reference that I made in one of the first lectures. And that spot represents the world coordinate system. So right now, when you start a file, all of your planes and views and things like that are aligned with the world coordinate system. And that world coordinate system doesn't ever change, but you can move the coordinate plane around this plane right here to wherever you would like it. And when you do that, it's going to ask for different features. All right. What we are going to make in this lab is we're going to make this weird sort of spider, a weird part of a costume. I've got some reference figures here that you can use, male or female, whichever you prefer. But this is going to essentially kind of wrap around someone's body as part of a costume, maybe. And we're also going to use our, where's the connector geometry right here? We're going to use our connector geometry that we're going to use in Project 2 and make some connectors to help us understand that process. So I hope you're ready, because we're going to dive right into it and just go over the basics of adding a construction plane. And what do you need to make a construction plane, right? You just need to make a flat surface. Essentially what you need is you need to find an origin, an x-axis, and a y-axis, and then the z direction or the z-axis, or it really only depends on the direction because it could go up or down, which you'll see in a second. I'm just going to show you, I'm going to turn my world coordinate system back on. This is just reference. And the way we can change the coordinate plane or add a mobile construction plane is we can come up to view and we can go to set CPlane. Now we've got a lot of different options here. And the first one, I'm just going to click mobile construction plane. It's going to say, do you want it attached to an object? And for right now, I'm going to say, I'm going to try to shoot for this plane right here. That's better outline. And I'm going to select this object. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say attach. And it's going to ask me, okay, mobile plane origin, press enter. And so it's asking me for that origin point or the center of that coordinate system. And I'm just going to turn my intersection snap on, and I'm just going to click this intersection here. And then it's saying, okay, where do you want the x-axis direction? And I could pick any number of directions, but just to keep it simple, I'm going to say maybe I'll line it with this edge, and then it's saying, okay, now where do you want the y-axis? And if I zoom in here, you see how I want to say this intersection, but it's actually not lining up with that line? That is because that line is not actually perpendicular with this line. So your coordinate systems between your x and y axes are always going to be perpendicular to each other, no matter where they are. So this is saying like, okay, I'm going to aim for this, but it can't really. So I'm going to just click there for right now. And automatic update option, yes, I'm just going to hit done. And our coordinate plane is moved to that location. You can see how it's close. It's not spot on, but it's getting there. Now, if we look back there, our world coordinate system is still there. Now, generally, you won't have any sort of visual representation to that. All right. So now we've got our mobile construction plane oriented. Let's see if we can kind of view this a little better. Well, it's asking me for this, so I'm going to cancel out of a new construction plane. I'm going to come up to my view drop-down menu, and I can see I can set the camera. Now it's giving me options. I can set it to the coordinate plane, top, bottom, left, right. I've got quite a few options. And that's going to set the camera to the coordinate plane. All right, the coordinate plane we just moved. So if I click CPlane top, it's going to automatically align the camera with our new coordinate plane. Now it's a little bit of a perspective view, or everything's kind of skewed because we're aligned with this really weirdly skewed surface. All right. Now if I right click, it'll automatically sort of move that around in the perspective view because I'm working in perspective view. So please keep in mind, if you want to pan around, hold the shift button down to pan. I'm sorry, hold the shift and right click button down to pan around. All right. I'm not really happy with this coordinate plane because I want to make sure that that coordinate plane is actually flush with this surface, or it's coincident with that surface. So what I can do is I can make a new coordinate plane, or if I ever wanted to kind of restart, what I have to do is I have to go to View, Set Coordinate Plane, and I can always go back and set it at the world top, which is the one we were working in before. Now, you can't undo the creation of a coordinate plane. So you can't do a Control Z or Command Z if you don't like your coordinate plane. You have to either reset it or go back and change it in any of these methods. All right, so please remember that you cannot undo setting a coordinate plane. All right. I am now going to show you the toObject command, which automatically snaps a coordinate plane to a specific object in generally kind of the area where you try to click the object. So I'm going to select this surface, and you can see it's automatically brought that coordinate plane right to that surface. And sometimes if it's a nice easy edge surface, it will bring it to the centroid of that surface. So just to prove to you, I'm going to do curve from objects, duplicate face border. I'm going to select this border, and I'm going to add a point right in the center. All right, and I'm actually going to hide the body of that connector, and you see how that point is lined up right there with the new coordinate system. All right, which is good, but sometimes it doesn't do exactly what we want it to do. So for example, I'm just going to select this. I'm actually going to lock the reference images for later, turn my spider body back on, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to change the coordinate plane back to object, and I'm going to select the body of this object. And when I select it, it's in line with that top surface, but it's also not necessarily, and I'm going to hide my reference images so it's a little clear. You see how it's not really in any sort of specific direction. It's kind of random. What you can do is if you really want it to be on that surface, you can come back to View, Set CPlane View, and change it by rotating it. You can also change the origin. And so let's rotate it first. So we can do 0. And I'm just going to rotate the y-axis. And, oh. What it was asking for is it's asking for a axes to rotate it on. So let's just start that again. And it's saying start of rotation axes. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to type in 0, enter. And then I'm going to say end of rotation axes. And I'm just going to click Z. And what that does is it automatically brings a Z axis that should automatically be, hard to see, perpendicular to that coordinate plane. And if I hold shift, again, it automatically aligns to the axes, and then I can rotate that. And I'm going to say midpoints right there. Oops. I don't know if that actually did what I wanted it to do. But I think the axis is also slightly off. It's really hard to tell sometimes. Now, what I want to do next is, you can change the origin if you'd like. So I'm going to change the origin, and it's saying CPlane origin, and I can maybe change it, but it's going to stay in its orientation at the moment. And I'm going to turn midpoint off an intersection. And say that intersection. And so there's a lot of different options, say if you really want it to be specific there. And then it's a little easier because then you can also draw specific geometry at that point. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Instead of then manipulating the geometry and then moving it around. Or making the geometry and then moving it. So what I can do is come back to View, and I'm going to go to 3-point. Now, 3-point is pretty handy because you can really get precision and really make sure you have precision if you want that coordinate plane to be flush with a surface. Because every plane needs, 3 points, right? It defines the origin, the end of the x-axis, and the end of the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and click 3 points. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to then try to connect it back to the surface. And I'm going to, where's my curve? Cancel, come back to hide this guy. My geometry, where did my geometry go? Well, I don't know where my geometry went, but it's easy to get back. Curve from objects, duplicate face border, boom, enter, and I'm going to come back to View, set coordinate plane, 3 points. And I'm going to do midpoint for that. And I'm going to say center, midpoint, and close to midpoint here. And I'm just going to do near. You can kind of see, let's turn midpoint off. And you can see how the near is automatically trying to align it with to be nice and flat. So anywhere on this point, really, or anywhere on this edge is going to make the coordinate plane flat against that plane. And then I can go back to view, set camera, top CPlane, and there we go. And that's really a best practices to ensure that you have a CPlane that you want flush with an object or close to the object. All right. So I hope that was a good precursor to coordinate planes. And what we're going to do next is we're going to try to create some lines here using that 3-point coordinate plane. So keep posted, and we're actually going to use some of this information. Thanks.